With the recent news of Honda leaving F1, I began to think, how many times have they done this before? Because I can vividly remember how they scrapped their promising 2009 contender for the global crisis, leading to their chassis winning the championship the following year. And now, once again, they're leaving a promising project before a major change in regulations, which pointed towards successful years ahead. Well, today we're gonna take a look at exactly that. What actually happened with Honda throughout the years? Where did they begin? Where did they get to? What did they accomplish? And what did they fall short of? For Honda's first take at F1, we have to go all the way back to the 1960s, with all the danger, raw speed, and secret cars of the time, more specifically 1964. They entered just 4 years after starting to make road cars. With the RA271, the following year, they would win their first race with John Surtees. 2 years would go by and one of the most beautiful cars in F1 history would make its racing debut. The RA300 was a race winner on its first event at the 9th race of 1967, the Italian Grand Prix. It remains the only car to take its single victory in its first Grand Prix and on the only lap it would ever lead. A few more years of unsuccessful attempts would conclude after the 1968 French Grand Prix, where the unfortunate death of Joe Schlesser, added to an unsuccessful entry to the North American market, would put an end to Honda's F1 focus for a long time. The most prominent time in the Japanese automaker's F1 history came in the nearly 10 years that they were engine suppliers, from the late 80s to the early 90s. Honda made its F1 debut as a supplier with Spirit Swedish driver Stefan Johansson at the 1983 British Grand Prix at Silverstone, in one of the most iconic cars in F1 for its special looks, but not for a good reason. You see, after the ban of ground effect, most 1983 contenders were sleek and flowing, with aero that resembled an arrow, whereas the Spirit resembled a badly assembled Lego kit. Johansson qualified in a great 14th place on the team's first race, only to end up not finishing the race due to a fuel line issue. This good first year with Spirit caught the eye of reigning champions Williams, who took them on as suppliers for the last race of that year and through to the 1987 season. They would take 2 championships with Mansell and Piquet, 18 wins and 18 further podiums. For 1988, they partnered with McLaren, where they took every single championship until 1991. Then, Honda decided to pull out of Formula 1 after the 92 season, due to the burst of the Japanese asset price bubble that occurred that year. They finished second with McLaren that year, and the Honda name would be missing from F1 for a short couple years. For 1999, they'd flirt with the idea of re-entering the sport, having even done a test with a Dallara chassis for an entry as a full manufacturer team, but eventually they decided to partner with Mugen Motorsport for a joint supplier entry that year. Although this partnership would only last 1 season, as they became part of the BAR Honda project that would also supply Jordan from the year 2000 on. During the 2004 season, they got second place in the Constructors' Championship, only behind the dominant F2004 by Ferrari. In September 2005, Honda decided to acquire 55% stake of the BAR team, and would enter as a manufacturer team for the second time in their F1 history in 2006. After impressive winter testing form, they would end up not challenging for the championship. The car was quick in qualifying, but would get swallowed by the pack on race trim. However, after the German Grand Prix, the tables would start to turn as they got a 4th position and their first race win with Jenson Button a race later at the Hungaroring. Their form would continue to be strong for the remainder of the season, climbing up to 4th with a podium to send off 2006. For 2007, the RA107 was unveiled with a completely revolutionary livery concept, scrapping all sponsors to make what was known as the Earth Car for environmental awareness. This car would have been much more effective if they had carried with the 2006 form, but the results were just absolutely shocking, tanking only 3-point finishes all season, with an average finishing position of 11.4 and a grand total of 6 points. They'd finish 8th in the championship, only 2 points ahead of Backmarker and customer team Super Aguri. The following year wouldn't fare much better. With an updated version of the RA107 and a simplified version of the Earth livery, their aero package and chassis were just bad. The car lacked drivability, as noted by the drivers. Team principal Ross Brawn had stated that the following year's regulation simplifying aero would help massively, and that they were ready to mount a championship challenge for 2009. They just needed to wait out the 2008 season, where they'd finish 9th with 14 points and a single podium. This plan looked promising until Honda announced that, once again, They were leaving the sport due to the economic crisis, choosing instead to scrap their future plans and preparations, pretty much gifting them to Ross Brawn, who saved the team via management buyout, who then went on to enter as Brawn Grand Prix and won both championships in 2009, with a Mercedes engine strapped onto the Honda chassis. For 2013, McLaren were struggling with the idea of the Mercedes factory team leaving them as customers, and therefore took Honda in, who seek to get back in touch with Formula 1, and would motorize the British team from 2015 on, 1 year after the beginning of the turbo hybrid era, with the hopes of bringing back amazing memories from the bygone era of McLaren Honda domination, a dream per se. This partnership would be a complete disaster, leading to unreliability from the get-go and DNFs left and right. McLaren's 2015 Challenger would finish 9th and racked up 13 engine-related DNFs, 2 of them actually being DNSs. For 2016, things would get marginally better, with much more reliability, but 2017 would be the breaking point. The new power unit architecture led Honda to backtrack to the 2015 results, and it seemed they couldn't make a car compete a race even if their lives depended on it. This partnership failed due to overpromising, misleading, and a compartmentalized structure, not letting McLaren have a real input in the manufacturing of the power unit. You know the deal. Tap on the iCard for the full in-depth analysis of the McLaren-Honda partnership. For 2018 on, they would be motorizing Toro Rosso and would learn from their previous mistakes. They sort out reliability first and then concentrate on the results. This ended up working out great, and for 2019, they were powering Toro Rosso and top team Red Bull, leading to 3 wins and 11 podiums by both them and Toro Rosso. 2020 was a year of even more improvement. Honda currently are the second fastest power unit, but still, they recently announced they're gonna be leaving F1 once again, ahead of a major aerodynamic regulation change. I honestly don't understand the thinking behind this decision. This rule change added to the quick Honda power unit could have meant that the Red Bull senior designer Adrian Newey made a championship-winning car, but I guess we'll never know. Honda went into a path of almost guaranteed success if you ask me, but before anything could really come to fruition, they ran away once again, choosing to take the environmental approach, saying they're trying to reduce emissions while still in contract to deliver V6s to IndyCar. Imagine if Honda had stuck it out a bit more over the years during Mile Challenge. Maybe they would have continued to win in the late 90s, take a championship in 2009 as a constructors for the first time, and who knows, maybe even make Verstappen a champion with Red Bull for the new era of Formula 1. But once again, here we are, so close but yet so far. Once the hard part was over, they decided to quit. Once they had refined their power unit, gone through the grueling first McLaren years and into winning races, they just drop everything. Will we ever see Honda returning? I honestly don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't. After the success of the 80s and 90s, they took a prudent exit on the top, which I understood, because they could have said that their goals were achieved, and they had dominated F1 for almost a decade, with 2 of the biggest teams in the sport's history. But this time it just feels like a wasted opportunity, wasted potential, wasted money and research, and most of all, just a dick move towards Red Bull and AlphaTauri, who gave them a chance and a platform to grow and develop from a joke into the great suppliers that they are now. But the overarching statement that we can conclude on is that the hybrid era has well and truly failed. The regulations put in place to attract new suppliers and manufacturers has left F1 in the same state that it found it on. 2014 started off with 11 teams. Caterham and Marussia are gone, and the one team that joined, Haas, is now struggling to survive. Any new manufacturers? You could say so, with Renault retaking their team from Lotus, but they haven't come close to the top since their comeback, not even getting a single podium. How about power unit suppliers? The hybrid era started off with Mercedes, Ferrari and Renault, and now that the regulations are changing and it's been 6 years, we have Mercedes, Ferrari and Renault. This change in powertrain philosophy was extremely expensive to develop and run, and it only ended up favoring a single team, the one that is always on top. We've had some great races, but the last time we actually had a fight for the championship was 4 years ago, and it was between the 2 Mercedes. For a fight between more than one team, you have to go all the way back to 2012, 8 years ago now. Luckily, next year all the Bernie deals are expiring and we can go fully into the Liberty era from 2022 on, who have done a lot for the sport ever since they acquired it in 2017. But the new engine regulations are gonna have to be thought out extremely well by the new F1 boss. I've seen lots of people suggesting a V8 comeback, but that's definitely not gonna work in the long term. So my ideas are 2. A reverse of the philosophy we now have with a main electric motor and a backup ICE, or to add hydrogen into the mix. Hydrogen fuel is the next big thing, and it's also very eco-friendly, with reduced greenhouse gas emissions, high reliability, and of course the encouraged development of renewable energy sources, which the hybrid era tried and failed to do. In a move I think would have been much better received if it was implemented earlier, maybe for 2011, but in 2014 hybrids were not the next big thing, they were already here. And if we want for F1 to remain relevant, it has to attract manufacturers and suppliers somehow. I think hydrogen might just be the way forward for that. That conclusion kinda went off the rails, didn't it? Now I'm passing the question on to you. What do you make of the Honda move? Do you share my opinion, or do you think otherwise? What do you think the future of F1 is gonna look like? Leave your opinions in the comments section, and I'll make sure to give them all a read. And as always, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future uploads.